Welcome to Cornerstones, and now I'm pleased to invite Mike Lewittes and uh, to, to speak to us on St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I'm wearing green, as you can see. Uh, Mike Lewittes is a media expert. He had leadership positions at NBC and other well-known media outlets. He was the one responsible for bringing US Weekly up to prominence. You've heard of People Magazine, but now, and US Weekly has, if you've been to the supermarket or otherwise in your emails, have seen how it's grown. That was because of him. And also he founded Gossip Cop, which is, I think, the only media site that checks gossip. It's a well-known site, you can check it out. He currently, and he sold it. He currently advises venture capital firms and companies on media issues and SEO. And in this process of developing US Weekly, Gossip Couple, he has realized he has to become an SEO expert. He has to learn how to get up there on Google. So he trained himself and became this guru in SEO. And he's going to share his knowledge with us. And he's also currently an advisor at the Grip Venture Studio, which is a venture studio for emerging companies, venture capital, with experts in different areas, for many of which will take equity. So that's what he's also working on now. And it's my pleasure to turn the event over to Michael.
Thank you so much, Jed, and thank you all for being here today. So I'm going to talk to you about SEO. Let's jump right in. I'm going to share a bunch of slides with you, and let's jump in. So what is SEO and why is it so important? And for starters, well, SEO is not magic, nor is it manipulation. Basically, there are no tricks involved at all. SEO is simply search engine optimization. And it's how you improve your chances of having your product, your services, your content surfacing to the top of Google search results. And from its perspective, Google just really wants to display the most accurate, trustworthy, and best results on its platform. So as opposed to paying for ads, when you do SEO successfully, consumers feel they've organically come across a very reputable product or service. And your goal then is to show Google that your site, your product, your services are high quality and worthy of displaying prominently in its search results. And to do that, you need to send certain signals. Those are called ranking factors, and they're weighed in many different ways by Google. So if you consistently follow these best practices that we're going to discuss, you'll find that SEO is really one of the most important and affordable tools you have at your disposal to reach consumers, markets, or visitors. But SEO isn't just something that you implement and then leave on its own. Like everything that's integral to scaling your business, it needs to be worked on a daily basis, much like a garden. So let's get with it. Google measures websites and individual pages based on more than 300 of what I said are ranking factors. And the more compliant you are with their guidelines, the more likely you are to rise higher in their search results. Now, we obviously can't get to all of those ranking factors, and frankly, the vast majority of them are not even that crucial. But among the more significant ones that we're going to discuss are content quality, linking, and user experience. So, what does Google want? Well, ultimately, what Google wants is expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Their acronym for EAT: expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. Now, those aren't ranking factors per se, but they do align with basically everything that Google is looking for. Simply, Google wants to surface results from authorities, from individuals or companies that are authoritative in their fields, that have repeatedly proven themselves as trustworthy, and companies which are run by experts. So if you have a contact lens company, you better have an ophthalmologist as a founder or an advisor. They don't want it just to be two people with MBAs. You need to prove that you're experts in that field. But if you can't signal those aspects to Google and help the search engine better understand your website, your company, then really it's all meaningless. And I always say that to everyone. You can have the best product, the best website, but if you can't show it to Google, which then in turn shows it to the world, there's no point. So let's first discuss user experience. I cannot express enough how important it is to pay attention to user experience. And I'm going to list a few here on this slide in a moment. User experience, UX as it's known, is basically your way to give your users an optimal experience when they're visiting your site. If it's difficult to read, hard to navigate, people will come once, maybe twice, feel it's low quality and not return. So it's really important that even things like spelling and grammar, punctuation are attended to. I have actually seen a number of websites that are very reputable, but because they're sloppy with their grammar or their spelling, they get deprecated or lower in search results. Google's machine learning is so highly sophisticated that it can downgrade you for things like that. So I guess the question you're first asking is, why am I doing everything to satisfy Google? And the answer is not because it's the biggest search engine in the world or that it can drive a tremendous amount of traffic and revenue to your business. And here's where I get accused often of drinking the Google Kool-Aid. Hold on a second, sorry. Good. No, the reason you want to satisfy these criteria is actually because Google's guidelines are not capricious by any stretch of imagination, and it's not a product of their engineers saying it's my way or the highway. It's none of that. What happens is Google tests and tweaks everything possibly that you can imagine, and then feeds all that data into their machine learning. And it takes these trillions of data points, and as a result, what Google advocates for you to fully practice and what to align with them is not necessarily what Google wants, but what they've come to learn is what visitors want. So ultimately, what Google has done is they've done the hard work of analysis for you. Now all you have to do is implement it. So now let's look at some of these user experience. First, your site needs to be optimized for mobile first. Everything is turning mobile. Even if you have a desktop, you need to make sure your mobile site is good. We'll get to all these a little more. The next is the visual stability of your page is crucial. It cannot shift. Page speed is important. You can't disrupt your content with those annoying pop-ups. Don't crowd your site with ad after another ad after another ad. And also make sure your site is secure with HTTPS. Now, as I said, everything is going to be mobile index first. Google will soon be crawling and indexing your mobile site first rather than your desktop version. And that's because the vast majority of people are interacting and getting their information from their phones these days. So that's very crucial that you do that. And also that you align the content on your mobile site to be exactly the same content, same functionality as your desktop. Also, visual stability is crucial. I know it sounds crazy. Here's an example from USA Today. I was scrolling down, and as you can see, the content shifted to the right a little bit. That is going to be a very big ranking factor over the next few months. So you need to make sure with your developers that your content doesn't shift. This has particular application when you have if you have a commerce site, for instance. Someone puts something into their shopping cart, and they decide, you know what, I don't want to buy it. And instead of pressing no thanks because it shifts or it's shaky and it's jumpy, they inadvertently press purchase. Google is very concerned about people making those mistakes, so make sure your site is stable. Another ranking factor is speed. It's been for a long time. I'm sure you've all opened a website. It took a long time for everything to load. It's a terrible user experience. There have been studies that show there's a very strong correlation between how fast your site opens and increased traffic and conversion with sales. So a site opens slow, chances are it's going to be also slow to use the shopping cart or to show products. You definitely want to have a fast site. Also, if it's applicable, don't disrupt your content with annoying pop-ups for newsletters and offers. It's a bad user experience. In all the years I've been doing this, because it's a negative ranking factor, you will lose traffic, and I'm sure you will lose more traffic than you will gain people signing up on your newsletter. There are probably more elegant ways of doing that. Maybe put it on the bottom of your site or on the right rail, but don't have those annoying pop-ups. Another bad user experience is far too many ads. This is actually from a content site, believe it or not. And here's the content. People come to your site. They want to see products, they want to see services, they don't want to see ads. The double whammy also of having a lot of ads is it slows up your site. So not only is it a terrible user experience, not being able to find the content, not being able to find what you want, but it also slows down your site. And as I mentioned a moment ago, pace, speed is important. And lastly, with the user experience, you want to make sure your site is has HTTPS encryption as opposed to HTTP. Google has noted in the past that security is a top priority, and in an effort to keep and create a safer internet, they want everyone using an HTTPS encryption, and it's therefore then an important ranking signal. I'm actually surprised when I find sites that are not secure. So let's go over some of the pitfalls that you should avoid, and then we're going to get to linking and images. So some of the pitfalls. While it's not really a penalty, you should avoid publishing duplicate content. That can result in your pages being less visible and being pushed down to maybe page 2 or 3, which, let's face it, no one goes to page 2 or 3 unless they're cyber stalking you. So what is duplicate content? Duplicate content generally refers to substantive blocks of content within or across domains that either completely match each other content, or completely match other content or are appreciably similar. Mostly this is not deceptive in origin. Now I have to say, I think this is as good an explanation as you're going to get about duplicate content. And the reason I know that this is as good as it's going to get is because it itself is duplicate content. This is from Google's guidelines. Now, I know most people don't think that they would have duplicate content, but it can happen by accident. It's like, for instance, let's say there's a big regulatory announcement. It's quite possible that you've included content on your site that has this new regulation or new law, and you're quoting it verbatim. So you're not really trying to actively dupe anyone, but what happens is because you have the same quotations and everyone across the internet ultimately has the same quotes about this new regulation or new law, it's going to move your content down because Google's crawlers will read it as duplicate. So a very nice workaround, I always say, is to paraphrase, use bittier quotes, try to change the verbiage, but convey the same information. That way, Google will not view that same information as duplicate. And this can, by the way, happen all the time with headlines as well. It's very common. Headline, Fed's lower interest rates. And if it happens in the next quarter, it would make sense to also do the same headline. But what you should do is vary it up a little bit. So in that instance, it would be Fed's lower interest rates for second quarter straight or for second time in this fiscal year, something like that. Just to make your content look different. You really need to always put in the back of your head that you don't want duplicate content. And that could be, by the way, on your About Us page. You don't want your bio to be the same as your LinkedIn bio. So just to recap that very quickly, never post duplicate content. Avoid using long quotes that are posted elsewhere. Don't repeat the same headlines. Never post duplicate content. See what I did? Okay. Another major pitfall is what Google terms thin content. And this is actually a very large subject with a lot of nuances, but I will touch on it very quickly so we all understand. Thin content essentially is content that Google deems low quality, that they think is not authoritative. It doesn't add value for the visitor. And as a result, it will then rank much lower in search and have less visibility. This is really what does companies in whenever there's an algorithmic tweak, of which there generally are, well, there are 10 minor ones a day, so 3,600 approximately a year, but there are 4 major ones a year. Now, Google doesn't ascribe a word count to what is and what isn't thin content. But anecdotally, I can tell you that if you have posts or descriptions of products that are 400 or more words compared to, say, 100 words, the 400 words will do better. Again, let me stress, Google doesn't base word count on thin content on word count, so there's no need to be verbose, wordy, loquacious, garrulous, voluble, nor should you be unnecessarily, pointlessly, aimlessly, or needlessly filling your stories with articles or posts or content with redundant or repetitive sentences, verbiage, or phrases. You get the picture. I just said a lot of words, didn't have a lot of value, nor was it additive in any way. Succinctly say what you need to, but make sure that you use enough words to exude, again, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Your EAT needs to permeate every aspect of your site. You need to think of it always when you're creating content, when you're doing the About Us page. Everything should exude this expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So then the question is, why do longer stories do better than shorter ones or pieces? And it's basically because the more information that you put or the more details you give about a product, the more substantive it is. It's that simple. Now let's get to the subject. Sorry, I should have included this. Now let's get to the subject of linking, and I'll try to get that as quickly as possible. So with linking, there are two types of links. There is the do follow link and the no follow link. And very simply, when you're linking from one part of your site to another part of your site internally, you use a do follow link. And that signals to Google that there's a connection between those two pages, that it's all part of the same website, but there's a connection. Where it gets a little trickier is the no follow attribute. And you should use the no follow link when linking to a third party, an external site. So if you're linking to an Instagram page or a law or a regulation that's been published, you use a no follow. And that signals to Google that it's related to your content, but it's not actually part of your website. And very simply, this is what it would look like on your CMS, your content management system. This is from WordPress. I've clicked only the top part. We're linking a new tab. What I haven't linked for an internal do follow is the rel equals no follow, because this is a do follow. And similarly, for the next one, I have the rel equals no follow for an external site. And that's because I'm trying to signal to Google that this is a third party I'm linking to. It is not my own content. Now, as you can tell from, and also, by the way, you've noticed I've done link in a new tab. I think you should always link in a new tab, especially if it's to a third party, because you don't want to take a person off your site directly to another site. But I also think it's good for your own site with internal do follow links to open to a new tab, because if, let's say it's a commerce site, someone's buying something, you don't want to get them right to the shopping cart right away. You want them to go around and keep adding things to the shopping cart. As you can tell from the way that I talk about this, links have value. I think of them as currency. So very quickly, what I will tell you about it is, it's important that because others are ranking to you, it sends a signal to Google that if you're getting linked to from, let's say, a news outlet, that's basically a thumbs up, an endorsement. It's saying that you're a commodity and that you have value. Another thing is that the more links you get, the more reputable your site becomes. It's the reason why some of these big newspapers, which get linked to thousands of times, always pop up on the top, and new outlets don't, or the same with new products. It takes a while, but the more links you get, the more reputable Google will understand that you are. And then you don't want to do too many links though on your site, because think of links as your currency. It's like printing up money. The more and more money you print, the more and more it dilutes the value of it. So you want to do it judiciously. And also think of your links, because I'm using the same analogy, as it's your bank. With the do follow links, you don't want to send out too much. You don't want to debit so much. You want more to come in. Okay, let's move very quickly to how to link. So you've seen this before, words underlined, different colors. those, you've seen the links and you either click on them, you don't. This is what that's called is anchor text, the color or underline part. And this is an example of bad anchor text. It's one word. I don't know if I were to click on this, what I'm going to get. Google views 1 and 2 words that are linked like that as spammy, because you're not giving context to the person reading it. So this is a very poor example, or what we call bad anchor text. Here's from the Wall Street Journal. This is actually a very good anchor text. Consumers boosted their spending in October. I know exactly when I click on that what I'm going to get. It's going to be about consumers spent more in October. And when you look at that gray link below, whoops, sorry, I skipped one. When you look at that gray link below that I've linked to, you'll see that the Wall Street Journal is linking to another one of its stories, and that link is consumer-spending-personal-income, October 2020. So it's a far better anchor text. What you want to do basically when you're linking is mimicking and resembling the other word's URL, so that the person who clicks on it has an idea of what they're clicking to. And it also sends a signal to Google that there's a connection between what's being linked and what you're linking to. And as I said in the beginning, it's all about sending signals to Google. So lastly, Google rewards not only high quality content, but also content that's unique. And that also goes to images. Listen, I don't expect most people to have dedicated photographers or designers creating unique illustrations for their website, for their artwork. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to use the same stock photos as everyone else or the same illustrations that everyone else is. And so what I often suggest is try to maybe mash up different images, different pictures, and that way you're creating a unique image. So let's look at one example here. So if you look at this is from a story about Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. Limited number of photos of the two of them together. Maybe I add a little artistic license there, okay? But there's little uniqueness to this photo because it's been everywhere and it's been repeated over and over in different situations and for different stories. In fact, I did a Google search, and as you can see, this story was used by Newsweek in May 2020. The Washington Post used it in November 2019, and the BBC used it in June 2019. All different times and all for different stories. And so since you can actually get search traffic and you can make your site more appealing by having unique artwork, one of the things I would suggest is, like I said, mash them up. Put two different images together or different illustrations, play with it, maybe shade things differently or add a filter, just make that image look a little different. So I think we want to end probably with something that's a tiny bit prettier. And what would an presentation on SEO be with a nice flowery ending? So your website is a garden. Consider a website much like a garden. It needs to be tended to day and night. As I said, there are 10 algorithmic tweaks a day, estimated 3,600 changes. So you're going to have to maintain your site every day. It's mandatory. And if you neglect any of it, weeds like thin content or duplicate content will pop up and destroy your site and its ability to rank high in search. So instead, nourish your site every day with fresh, unique, vibrant content that's high quality. And make sure that you follow Google's best practices and guidelines so that your site, like a garden, is positioned in a good light. Finally, once you've planted all these good seeds of SEO, it's time for you to sit back and watch your traffic grow organically. So with that, thank you. I know I took you through that quickly, but I was looking at the time and I wanted to make sure we covered a lot of the basics about user experience, linking, images, duplicate content, and thin content.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
We have 2 questions already.
Sure.
Feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box. Question from Steve DeLuca. Can you discuss the new rules around cookies and how that will impact search?
Well, that's okay. So cookies actually is going to be separate. It's going to affect the way that Google is able to tell with ads. Google's been, to be honest, Google's been pretty good about anonymizing uh, its users. Other places, I'm not going to say which, tech giants really drill down a little more into the IP and find out who's clicking onto ads. But that has to do more with ads, and it's not going to affect search per se, but it will affect how ads are targeted toward individuals.
Great. Next question is there a good way to assess SEO health to create a benchmark and see progress and improvements?
Sure. So one of the first things you should do when you have a website is sign up for Google Analytics. It's a free tool from Google, and it drills down on every possible thing you can imagine. It will even tell you if you have broken links. It will tell you if your site is not being crawled correctly, and it will tell you on a second-to-second basis how many people are on your site. If you're a site that has a tremendous amount of traffic, it's fun to watch. If it's a site that you see if you had 5 visitors that day and whether they made conversions, then you can check it at the end of the day. But Google Analytics is a fantastic tool. Anything that you can imagine that you need, including where customers are coming from, goes through Google Analytics.
How do you indicate, this is from Teresa Esterlund, how do you indicate no follow or do follow if you're not using a WordPress website?
It should be on most of them, but I think a simple search will show you that you can add rel equals no follow into the coding. But it should be, for most platforms, most of them, I think Wix, or one of them that I was playing around with, like GoDaddy or Wix, they automatically made things no follow, which, doing it all no follow doesn't hurt you. But it would help you a little bit if you could do a do follow for your internal links.
How do you think about SEM? Is it adjacent neighbors with SEO or something that should be thought of in conjunction? This is from Samir.
Yeah. So, it's a giant industry. There are a lot of places, SEM, which is the marketing side of it, which will tell you to focus on keywords. The example I always give is if you're in a window replacement business and you use one of those tools and it says, oh, wow, window replacement is too crowded. You'll never win this. You'll be on page 5 of Google search. Why don't you target the phrase glass pane replacement? It's like, yeah, I could do that, but no one looks that up, right? I'm a big fan of saying disregard some of those tools that say focus on these keywords. If your business is about cleaning pools, then you need to have those words, pool cleaning. You can't get around it. You can't do like large water receptacle in your backyard as your keyword. I think you need to just, it sounds like a cop-out, but Google always says create content that's, quote, awesome. But it isn't a cop-out. What I do suggest to everyone is, rather than SEM, is to have a blog on your site and create a lot of content with those keywords that you want to be found for. Chances are your competitors are not doing a lot of blogging, and the more you do and the more best practices that you follow, the quicker Google will crawl your site and see like, oh, wait a minute, these guys write a lot about this. They seem to be experts. They've been linked to by this outside source, or whether it's a review on social media from someone who likes your product, they'll get it. Believe me, it takes a little time, but Google will figure it out.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, great. Anything else to add, Michael? It was it hit the spot, so it was very, very useful. This is going to be recorded and put onto the DEF website. Oh, hold on. Here we have another question. Yeah. If your target audience isn't blog readers, is a blog still a good idea for your website just for SEO purposes?
I do. Yes, I do think so. Even if you have a product, you know, a lot that comes across my desk are CBD products and things like that. And there's a lot in the news about that. So I think you can, I don't want to say manufacture, but you can take the opportunity to, even if it's your own opinion piece on your blog, say, you know, CBD, for instance, let's say there's a new study that CBD relieves stress X%. You take that study, you weigh in with your own thoughts, and weave in your product that way, or weave in the keywords that you want to rank for that way. I think what's always good is to take a news story and to put your spin and your keywords in there. It adds a newsiness to it. It gives it a real reason for why you're blogging, and it keeps you relevant.
Great. Anything else? I'll give you guys a moment before we wrap up. So if you need, Michael, if somebody wants to contact you afterwards, you want to put your email in the chat?
Sure, I'm going to do that right now. It's very easy. It's michael@sitewideventures.com, but I'm going to put it in right now anyway.
And if somebody wants a copy of the video, it's good. Let me know, and I can provide it.
Let me make sure everyone gets an attendees. Yeah. Again, I can't stress enough, you know, just follow the basic rules. If you have questions about them, you're unsure, please shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help you. It's the people who try to game Google who end up getting burnt. If you just do things by the book, you will do well.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody. See you at the next event.
Thank you.